All right, here we are, the Mannix and Mora podcast. And Chris Mannix, I decided I wanted to open up the show because before we went on air, you were telling me about a beautiful surprise that you got in Connecticut in your Connecticut hotel bathroom. Do you want to tell the fans about the beautiful surprise you received this morning?
Can you separate between private conversations and conversations that we take on
No,
air?
because every time we're driving to the podcast studio, when I pick you up in downtown LA to when we go to the studio, we share a private conversation. And that's the first thing you attack me with. So I decided to return the favor to you, my friend.
This
Tell
says
everybody about tell everyone about your wonderful surprise you received in your Connecticut bathroom.
it's not it was a surprise that actually made me think of you because this hotel room I'm in Connecticut. I'm here for a couple of days to do some NBC stuff, some basketball stuff. This hotel room's got this fancy toilet where if you press a button, it just shoots water up your butt, which of course makes me think of you because you do a lot of that. Dude wipes, bidets, all the whole nine yards. Whenever we go to Saudi Arabia, the first thing you tell me is how excited you are to have a bidet in the hotel room.
A bidet is a beautiful experience, Chris Mannix. I'm glad you got to witness and experience it yourself because it's a wonderful surprise that leaves you fresh and clean, and you don't have to pay for it by wiping in another way. So look, I'm glad you finally washed away your washed away your dew with water.
This
Bidet
is
style.
I can't believe this was where you won. Right before we start, you go, let me open the show. And this is where
Boxing and bidets, baby. Boxing and bidets. Let's go, Mannix. Take over.
All right. A lot to get to on the show. We are going to talk about the International Boxing Hall of Fame ballots. One name in particular, Sergio, you are very excited to talk about. We're going to talk about the announced fight between Lamont Roach and Roach-Cruz. Khalil Coe. Not a good week for Khalil Coe. We're going to talk about that. And Conor Benn, this fight against Chris Eubank Jr. at 160, it's likely the last we see of Conor Benn at 160 pounds. I'm wondering if Sergio thinks that Conor Benn will immediately drop back down to 147 and become a contender there once again. But Sergio, before we get into any of it, we had a big announcement late last week. The show is going live. We will be live on Friday night after the weigh-in, 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. The Jerron Boots Ennis, Wiesman Lima weigh-in will take place on Friday night in Philly. Immediately afterwards, we are going to have a live show there. Eddie Hearn scheduled to join us on show. And Sergio, I'll give the fans another announcement. I've got another guest ready to go. Danny Swift Garcia is going to be there. Danny Garcia is going to join us at the venue. We're going to sit down and talk to him. He's got a fight coming up the week after at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. So Danny Garcia will be there. And I've got a couple more, man. I've got a couple more big names that are interested in attending and being on the live show. There are no tickets you need. You walk in, attend the weigh-in, see Boots Ennis, and then stick around. We'll go right into Fighter and the Writer live, the first time we are going live. And
Chris Mannix, now before you start, man, I'm thrilled and happy about this because this was a conception of an idea that I pitched to our producer when you pitched this show to them. I said, wouldn't it be a great idea to open up this pod to the fans and we can meet and greet? And you looked at me like I was an idiot. Here we are, 5 years later. Your life totally changed. Success has hit you in the head. Now you think this is your idea. This was something that I thought about a long time ago, baby. After the weigh-ins, let's have our show in front of everybody. And now it's coming to fruition. That was my idea. Give me credit for it.
You are an unbelievable moron. Because
give me credit. Did I not say
I'm
that?
I'm not giving you credit.
Say that at a meeting.
I don't care when you said it. This was an idea that I had going back to 2019 when there was a different regime at DAZN, when we were talking about doing it before the pandemic, and it went to hell after that. I have done live shows, Sergio. I did a 4-city NBA podcast tour. I've done this before. You're the guy that thinks of this great idea, does nothing to to make it come to fruition, and then takes credit for it. That's who you are.
No, I am, but at least give me the credit that I brought it up at a meeting, and you looked at me like I was just ignorant. Did I bring it up at a meeting? Yes or no?
You did.
Okay,
Then that
thought got planted, and that plant and thought grew into a beautiful rose. Now
Oh
it's
my
budding
God.
for both of us 5 years
My
later.
God. You know what? I think jetpacks are a good idea. When jetpacks become a thing, does that mean I should get credit for them?
What the hell's a jetpack?
Forget it. Never mind. All right, let's get into the Boxing Hall of Fame ballot, which was revealed this week. Some big names on that ballot. Gennady Golovkin makes his first appearance on the ballot. Steve Collins on the ballot as well. But one name in particular, Sergio, making his debut on the Boxing Hall of Fame ballot. That is one Vernon the Viper Forrest, the former world champion, someone you are very familiar with. His last two fights before he passed away tragically came against you. You won your world title against him at 154, lost it in the next fight after. You have been banging the drum for a long time, Sergio, to see Vernon Forrest on the ballot. Make your case to the Hall of Fame voters why the Viper deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Listen, I don't need to make the case since Ray Boom Boom Mancini and Arturo Gatti are not in the Hall of Fame. Vernon Forrest outshines both of them put together. Vernon the Viper Forrest not only was a 92 Olympian, two-division champion at 147, 154, beat the pound-for-pound number one, or arguably the number one fighter in the world when he was at his absolute peak and best in Shane Mosley, and was avoided by all the big names. All the big names that didn't want to face Vernon Forrest. I'm talking about Oscar de la Hoya, Felix Trinidad, Fernando Vargas, Winky Wright. None of these guys wanted to mention Vernon Forrest's name. That's the reason I believe Vernon the Viper Forrest, he earned, just like Donald Curry earned his way into the Hall of Fame 5 years ago. Vernon Forrest, another two-division champion, earned his way into the Hall of Fame. I mean, he was a perfect fighter, Chris Mannix. And I'm not just saying that because I fought this guy twice. I fought Shane Mosley, who's now in the Hall of Fame, and I fought Vernon Forrest, who I hope gets into the Hall of Fame. And I can tell you, Vernon's a way better fighter than Shane Mosley. Shane Mosley was an incredible, incredible gift and talent. But Vernon Forrest was an artist. He had the size, and that's what made him so hard to beat. He was 6 foot at 147, 154. Long reach, long middleweight reach. He used that reach, but he knew how to fight. He knew how to fight on the inside. He was mean. He had that Olympic pedigree. Excellent body puncher. Had speed, had power, had range. He had everything. He was a complete fighter. You don't hear that often, being a complete fighter. Vernon Forrest was a complete fighter. I remember before I fought him, my coach, Dean Campos, told me, that's one guy you should never face, never fight. I know it was a long time ago, but he goes, that style right there is hell for everybody. That guy is going to be hard to beat. And he was right. He says, I'd much rather you fight De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad. This was in the early 2000s. Trinidad, Vargas, all these guys. Vernon Forrest, that's the guy everyone was going to be avoiding. And sure enough, his entire career, the big names avoided him, and for good reason.
Yeah, as a voter, I would say Vernon Forrest has a very strong case. A 16-year professional career, 41 wins, 3 losses, 1 no contest. He was a world champion across 2 weight classes, a unified champion, fighter of the year back in 2002 as awarded by The Ring and the Boxing Writers Association of America. So he had a decorated pro career. And of course, we know how his life ended. 2009, he was murdered at a gas station. Tragic ending to the life of Vernon Forrest. But up until that point, he had what you can very much say was a Hall of Fame caliber career. And I think one of the reasons he's going to get in, look, let me say this first. I think he has a case to get in objectively in a vacuum. Like whether you look at any of the other guys that have gotten in as well. But I mean, look, this is what we talked about in the last Hall of Fame ballot when it came around. Vinny Paz gone in. Vinny Pazienza is in the Boxing Hall of Fame. You cannot, on no planet, make the case that Vinny Pazienza is a more worthy Hall of Fame fighter than Vernon Forrest. You can say that Vinny Paz gets some credit because of what he overcame and the near death, the injury, and the thing that was glamorized in Hollywood. But as far as accomplishments in the ring, Vernon Forrest is a far more accomplished fighter than Vinny Pazienza. He's a more accomplished fighter than a lot of guys, frankly, at least a handful in the last 20 years that have gotten in the Hall of Fame. I'm surprised it took him this long to get on the ballot. Now that he's on there, I mean, won't make my selections for a few weeks now, but I will say I am leaning heavily towards voting for Vernon Forrest on the surface because of what he accomplished, and also because, hey, Boxing Hall of Fame, you set the baseline here. You made Vinny Pazienza a Hall of Famer. If Vinny Paz is the floor for what it means to be a Boxing Hall of Famer, Vernon Forrest deserves to be in there.
Vernon Forrest was a lineal champion. He beat the pound for pound #1 best fighter in the world, like I mentioned. He has the accolades. I mean, I just don't understand what are the requirements to get in the Hall of Fame. This man covered everything from the Olympics to a champion in 2 divisions, and was only stopped one time by Ricardo Mayorga, a loss that he redeemed himself. And then from there, Mayorga ended up fighting every huge name because he had power, he had charisma, and he always came to fight. So there was no shame losing to Mayorga and then, coming up short with me. And then, of course, the very next fight, he beats me in that rematch. Vernon Forrest was an incredible all-around, complete fighter, and he will get in the Hall of Fame. I'm gonna go out on a limb right here. I know you're a voter. I'm not. He will get in the Hall of Fame because anyone that knows boxing, anyone that knows the ABCs in boxing, knows that Vernon the Viper Forrest was a complete fighter with no weaknesses. So if other boxers that are in the Hall of Fame, I can name a lot of them. Those are just 2 that we mentioned in Vinny Pazienza and Gotti. But I mean, Ray Mancini. I don't want to go down the list. I don't want to diminish their names, but there's a lot of them. Vernon Forrest outclasses, outshines, and is better than these guys. So Vernon Forrest will make the Hall of Fame. Mark my words.
Yeah, I think the only real argument against him is that he lost to you.
Oh, stop. Hold on. To defend myself, I already fought and didn't lose against a already Hall of Famer in Shane Mosley. So I went 36 rounds with Vernon Forrest and Shane Mosley. I went 36 rounds with hopefully 2 Hall of Famers, Chris Mannix. So you can't say that it was bad luck for him. No, I could fight. And these guys
and look, if you had prepared for the second fight in the way that you did for the first one, you probably would have beat him. Instead, you spent 8 weeks at Caesar's Palace and spent all your money.
No, it was they got me off guard. It was the Roberto Duran effect. When Sugar Ray Leonard beat when Duran beat Leonard, what did they do? It was an immediate rematch. Duran was caught off guard, overweight, because he was still celebrating that first fight. It was genius on their part. So I got to give credit to Al Heyman, who Vernon Forrest. That's another thing.
First fighter that Al Heyman worked with, I believe.
There you go. That was Al Heyman, the great Al Heyman. Advisor to a lot of great fighters. That was his first fighter, is Vernon Forrest. So, he's a shoo-in, in my opinion. I'm not a voter, but he's a shoo-in, and I hope he gets in because now that he's passed, his family and his kids and his legacy can continue enshrined in that great Hall of Fame.
I remember your trainer, Dean Campos, telling me the story of how he got a phone call from you like 5-6 weeks out from the fight, and you said, we got to do the rematch. It's in 5 weeks. And Dean goes, 5 months? You go, no, 5 weeks.
And then he goes, yeah, he didn't like that rematch. But here's another thing. There's a flip side to that. I didn't ask his opinion on taking that fight, accepting that fight. When it was offered to me, I said yes right away, even though he told me that's a guy we should never fight. And the reason I did that was because 2 fights ago, I had gotten a draw with Alvin Ayala. So my stock had dropped. So I'm thinking, how can I get my stock right back up immediately? I came back and got a knockout, and then I came back and won the title against Vernon Forrest.
Yeah, there's a great story that Dean told about the game plan for beating Forrest. He told us this story on a previous episode. I encourage people to go back and listen to the episode that Dean was on with us earlier in the year. It's also on YouTube, the top of the YouTube page as well. All right, let's talk about this Lamont Roach fight. Lamont Roach, still the 130-pound world champion, did not get the rematch with Gervonta Davis that he sought, so he is moving up yet again, this time to 140 pounds to take on Isaac Cruz. That's a fight that will appear, what is that? Is October, December? One of these, I forgot, one of these upcoming PBC cards. It's got to be a bummer for Lamont Roach to not get that Gervonta fight, both for the money and for the prestige that goes with it, with facing and maybe beating Gervonta Davis. What do you think of him moving up and weight yet again to fight Roach-Cruz at 140?
Yet again, that right there is incredible. So let's break down yet again. This is probably the first time I've ever heard a fighter in 3 consecutive fights bounce 3 divisions, Chris Mannix. That is impressive. That takes a lot of courage, a lot of confidence. And we need to give a lot of credit to Lamont Roach, not only from, going 3 divisions and 3 straight back-to-back fights.
December 6th, by the way. December 6th is the date. I skipped my mind for a second there. But December 6th in Texas is going to do that.
Don't interrupt me again.
I just had to get the facts out there.
And I love the fact that he's not going to wait around for Tank and the circus that he's going to participate in. He just said, you know what? I'm not waiting for that clown. I'm going to go get the next killer in line. And who's the next killer in line? A guy that almost beat Tank Davis, Pitbull Cruz. That's a way to send a message. If you weren't going to fight the guy that doesn't want, the guy that you should have beat in Tank Davis, then get the next best thing. Another short, compact, strong, come forward guy that arguably gave Tank the best fight aside from Roach, and make a statement out of him. I love this fight, Mannix. I love this fight. I mean, if we can't get Tank, then I think this is the second best choice for Lamont Roach to make a statement, not only to really get a convincing win against Pitbull, a guy that, gave Tank all he can handle, and send a message not only to Tank, to the fans, but to the whole division that Lamont Roach is a real player and a guy that's been sticking around, waiting in the wings just to get an opportunity. And when he got it, should have shined, but it got taken away from him with Tank Davis. Now he gets a second opportunity, a much-deserved second opportunity with Pitbull Cruz, a fighter that's really, really beloved by the Latin community and a hell of a fighter.
Cruz is a good fighter. Not what he used to be. His stock isn't quite as high since he lost that decision to Jose Valenzuela. Has bounced back with 2 wins since then, but he's at 27 years old. Like, he's one of those guys that's going to shine very bright for a very short period of time. Like, his shelf life is not long in boxing. I think we are seeing Roach-Cruz a little bit more on the downside of his career. The reason I don't love this fight is I'd much rather see Lamont Roach go back down to 130 and take on one of the names down there. Like, look for a title unification fight at 130 pounds, or look for what would be a lucrative title defense against someone like Raymond Ford.
Yeah, Mannix, but that means waiting. That means sticking around and waiting for that big name.
Waiting for what? Waiting for what? Raymond Ford's sitting there. Like, I'm sure Matchroom would pay pretty good money for Lamont Roach to fight Raymond Ford in a title defense. I mean, look, he's the world champion at 130 anyway. Like, at this point, it's going to be well over a year since he's fought for that 130-pound title. Is he never going to go back to 130? Is he just going to be 135-pound and up? Is he going to cross his fingers and hope that Tank comes back into play in 2026? Look, he's got that belt at 130, and that belt is currency. That belt puts him in play for some big fights in that weight class. I would have liked to have seen him use that currency. Now, maybe after fighting at 135, he's looking at himself and going, I can't make 130 anymore, so I'm going to go even further up and fight a guy that not long ago was a 135-pounder. Maybe. And I'm sure there's a nice check in it for him, fighting against Roach-Cruz. I don't know what the meaning of it really is. I think there's much more meaningful fights for him at 130, where he is the world champion. He is one of the 4 belt holders down there at 130 pounds.
Yeah, and this is a way to not only stay busy, but stay relevant in the minds of the real boxing fans that follow the sport and follow the champions, because this is a man that's already a world champion at 130, but he's not mentioned with the big names. And the time that he get an opportunity to face one of the, if not the biggest name in Tank Davis, they give you a draw in a fight they should have won. So Pitbull, whether you like it or not, Mannix, is a name because he's fought all the names.
He is a name. He is a name. He sells tickets.
If you can make a statement, yeah, if you can make a statement against Pitbull, not only that, but think about it. Pitbull, Roach, 2 guys that have fought Tank Davis and gave him hell. This can be a sneaky, entertaining, physical fight, because Roach is a boxer puncher, but sometimes he becomes a puncher more than a boxer. And we know that Pitbull is just one gear. He goes and sick him, boy. That's exactly his style. So this can be a sneaky, fight of the year type candidate fight, especially if Roach wants to send a statement to Tank and all these Tank fans that are getting off the Tank train because of his retirement talk. So there's a there's a spot to fill in these divisions, 130, 135, and Roach actually can send 130, 135, 140, and Roach can send a statement by making a statement against Pitbull.
I think it's a winnable fight if he boxes. We saw what Valenzuela did in that fight, where he was just boxing and boxing and more boxing. Like, I think engaging with Roach-Cruz and trying to go shot for shot with him isn't going to work. Roach wasn't a puncher at 130. He's not going to be one at 140. I think fighting a disciplined, off the jab, pot shot kind of style, stay away, come into this fight in great shape because this guy's going to be on you from moment one. I think that's his pathway to victory. And look, if you win that at 140, all of a sudden, a few weight classes are opened up to you. I just look, if he's not going to defend the title at 130, get rid of it, right? Let somebody else fight for it. Open up the division more. Like, guys that are holding on to titles across weight classes, I don't love it. I think they should be, either fighting and defending these belts or giving them up and allowing some other guys to get bigger paydays. I feel the same way about, 168. Before it was Canelo, now it's Terrence Crawford. All the guys that have belts at these weights, either fight for them or give them up and let somebody else ultimately fight for them. And that's on those sanctioning bodies too. So in a couple of days, we'll be in Philadelphia. I know you love a good trip to the East Coast. It'll be a little chilly there, Sergio, though, in mid-October. We'll be there for the Boots Ennis Usman Lima fight. That's going to take place on Saturday in Philly. The co-main event, Sergio, of that fight card was supposed to be Khalil Coe against Jessie Hart. And this was a fight that I really liked coming in. Khalil Coe was a big-time prospect when he signed with Matchroom, had some underwhelming performances, took a loss to Manuel Gallegos, bounced back with probably the best win of his career when he knocked out Gallegos in Mexico. And now he had the opportunity to fight Jessie Hart, someone that people know, has fought, 3 fights with Gilberto Ramirez, had 1 fight against Joe Smith. He has a name, and he's from Philly. Like, you got 2 guys from that Northeast corridor. Khalil Coe is from the Jersey area. You got Jessie Hart from Philly. It would have sold a bunch of tickets. It would have been a good event. It was a solid fight as the co-main event of this card. That fight is now off. Khalil Coe reportedly is injured, has a hand injury. I don't know how much of that I believe, quite frankly. Like, Khalil Coe is someone that we've called a lot of his fights. He has had conditioning issues. He has had training issues. I have had multiple people tell me that, in the last couple of weeks, he was over 200 pounds. Now, maybe he can cut weight like that 3 weeks to get down to 175. I don't know. I've had people close to him say he's done that in the past. But this is someone that's had weight issues, who's had training issues, who, if we're being honest, never really seemed to want this fight. This fight was out there for weeks, if not months, before Khalil Coe ultimately agreed to it. Now we've got this report of a hand injury, and he's off the card. I think this is a really bad look for Khalil Coe, and I think it's something that is going to stick with him, for a while now. What do you think?
Terrible look for the big step up, big disappointment, because this was an opportunity for him to shine, especially since he got stopped just 2 fights ago, to really go in there and make a statement against a really good former title challenger in Jessie Hart. I really like Jessie Hart. I've been following him since his first fight with Zurdo Ramirez. I mean, his fights with Zurdo back-to-back, and then his fight with Joe Smith Jr. I mean, he's dealing with big southpaws in Zurdo and just power punchers in Joe Smith, 2 champions, and he came up short. But this is a championship fighter. This is a world championship fighter, and Khalil Coe probably realized that, Mannix. All right, just like you say, it was a disappointment, and you're kind of like looking at him with a shady eye, saying, you probably weren't in shape, you weren't ready, and that's the reason you pulled out of this fight. And I agree with you. You may think it's because of that or the hand or weight issues, but I agree with you. I just think stylistically, this was going to be a headache for Khalil Coe. Jessie Hart is from Philadelphia. This fight's taking place in Philadelphia, so he's going to have the home crowd behind him. Hart was on a winning streak. I think it was like a 5-fight winning streak, and he was only lost to champions. So this was going to be a last chance opportunity for a damn good fighter that's only came up short with champions at 36 years old. So it was a great opportunity, and it's a terrible look for Khalil Coe. I don't think Coe comes back from this. I'll be honest with you.
I mean, he'll come back. He'll come back, but is it like with Matchroom? Like Matchroom
No, I'm saying I don't think he comes back from it reputation-wise.
Well, I mean, look, he's still young enough.
Explain
He's still
myself.
young enough that he can.
It's a bold statement. That's what I'm saying. Let me explain myself. I don't think he comes back from that, because if you just got knocked out 2 fights ago, yes, you came back and redeemed yourself, but still, you got a knockout loss in just a dozen fights, and then for you to come back and pull out of a fight that you probably weren't going to look that good, or maybe even lose against, but then what do? You pull out. So you lose a promoter, you lose your fight fans, you lose your momentum, and you lose your credibility. Khalil Coe's going to have a hard time turning a lot of heads and proving a lot of people wrong coming from here, because once you pull out from fights, especially this close to the fight, you start getting blackballed from boxing. Khalil Coe wasn't in the position to be pulling out. He doesn't have an unblemished record, and he doesn't have a promoter backing him. So I think Khalil Coe's going to have a hard time climbing back to a big spot, a big television network spot after this pullout.
Yeah, his second pro fight, he had a draw. He had multiple instances where he missed weight or had to have the weight changed before the fight. And then, as you mentioned, a couple of fights ago, I think that was also on a Boots at his card. Fights Manuel Gallegos, yeah, it was. In Philadelphia, gets stopped in the 9th round. To his credit, he bounced back and fought Gallegos and beat Gallegos again. And Gallegos is a tough guy. Like, knocking out Gallegos, that's a notch on his belt. But to follow that up with another kind of shaky-looking situation where you wonder, is he really hurt, or was the conditioning an issue yet again? And look, I get what you're saying about stylistically, it's a tough fight. We have to stop acting like this is Jessie Hart from 2017. Jessie Hart is 36 years old. Yes, he's on a winning streak, but take a look at the guys he's beaten on this winning streak, Sergio. They have been D-level guys, been fighting in the Team Combat League in recent years. Like, he's not on a tear at this point. So if you're Khalil Coe and you're this decorated amateur and this future world champion at 175, and you're coming off a dominant win over Manuel Gallegos, I'm sorry, you should be able to beat Jessie Hart. If you can't beat Jessie Hart, you don't belong in the conversation with some of the top guys at 175. You can't be calling out the bigger names, the Joshua Buatzis and the Callum Smiths and the guys that Khalil's management team want him to go up against. If you can't beat Jessie Hart, you don't belong in this game. And this, to me, smells like Khalil Coe didn't want any part of Jessie Hart and pulled out of this fight. And if Matchroom Sergio keeps him around, I wouldn't book a single other fight for him other than this one. I'll say, you got to fight Jessie Hart. Maybe if we do a show in New York, top of the year, you got to fight Jessie Hart. But one way or the other, Khalil Coe needs to live up to this contract and fight Jessie Hart.
I don't take too much on bad performances, because sometimes you fight to your competition, Mannix. So, fighters that can be...
What about weight? What about weight? Like,
hold on. Fighters that can be future champions, bad performances actually motivate them. Like, before I fought the great Vernon Forrest, who we were talking about, I had come off a draw with Alvin Ayala and a fight against Rito Rubalcaba. And then I ended up winning a title against a great fighter. So I don't take bad performances. Now, the weight, that can be an issue because it's happened more than one time. That can show discipline issues. That can show motivational issues, like what else? Or maybe you're outgrowing the weight. But I don't see Coe being, a cruiserweight. So, yeah, I think it's more laziness and being irresponsible, not aiming your targeted weight. But then once you start having weight issues, injury issues, promotional issues, then you're just the problem. And promoters aren't going to invest in that problem. They're not going to give dates to guys that they can't rely on. I think it's more the latter on this one. Khalil Coe's already disappointed several people, and he's a good kid, man. I like watching him fight. The big step was always, there was something missing. There was a gear missing, but I could see the potential. And he just had more hunger, more motivation, more killer instinct. He can be a threat. But those are the things that were missing even when he was winning fights. Now that he's lost a fight, pulled out of a fight, it's gonna be a terrible look for a guy that's already, in his late 20s.
Yeah, still has a lot to prove. And like I said, I think if Matchroom sticks by him, says, all right, you've got an injury, take care of it. 2026, we're going to rebook this fight. You have to fight Jessie Hart. I think it's just that simple. Maybe it's on another Boots on his card in the Philadelphia Northeast area, but it's got to happen before they give him another opportunity yet again. All right, last thing. No hunger issues, no motivation issues for Conor Benn, who is gearing up for this November 15th fight against Chris Eubank Jr. But in some interviews Conor's done recently, he has made it clear that he intends to drop down in weight and target some of the big names at 147 pounds. Conor, of course, was a rising 147 before the issues with the positive drug test, and then the Eubank Jr. fight came along. Sergio, I'm curious your opinion here. Like, it's a 50-50 type of fight, I think, between Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn based on the last performance. Regardless, though, like, do you think that if Conor Benn goes down to 147, he instantly becomes a contender in that weight class?
No and no. I don't think it was a 50-50 fight with Eubank. I think it was a 60-40. Eubank's too big for him. And I said this when we talked about this fight initially on the buildup. Chris Eubank is accustomed to fighting super middleweights. Conor Benn is not even a junior middleweight. He's not even a 154-pounder. He's a legitimate 147-pounder. So because of that, I think he fits in nicely at 5'8", even though he's muscular and he looks big on camera. When you see him in person, it's condensed muscle. You know, he has narrow shoulders. He's not a big guy. You know, he's just muscular. So Conor Benn's not going to be bigger than 147. And if he's going to win a championship, it's going to be hard to win a championship at welterweight, especially with these killers like Brian Norman and Devin Haney. You got Pacquiao coming back. You got Rolly Romero.
Hold up. I got to stop you right there. All right. Brian Norman, I can buy as a prospective killer. Manny Pacquiao is closer to 50 than he is to 40. Rolly Romero.
It's Devin Haney. Devin Haney's
Devin's a very good fighter. I wouldn't call him a killer at any weight class. I don't think that's the issue here, that there's so much overwhelming talent. Like, Rolly Romero is the most fortunate 2-division world champion that ever was. And Pacquiao, I mean, it's Pacquiao, right? Like, he's okay. We saw him against Mario Barrios. Mario Barrios, another guy, like, I wouldn't call him a killer either. So
no, he's not a killer, but he loses competitive fights. And I think if Conor Benn does win a world championship, that's the route he needs to go is Mario Barrios, because I don't see him beating all the other names that I just mentioned. Conor Benn has something missing. You know, I don't know what it is. He has something missing. But if he is going to be a champion, Mario Barrios is his best route.
You think he has something missing even after that last performance? Like, you know, he dug deep against Chris Eubank Jr. If he hadn't, you know, petered away some of those early rounds, I mean, he might have won that fight.
Yes, because Chris Eubank Jr. has something missing. Why Eubank's been around forever? How come he's never fought a legitimate #1 world champion? Because he has gears missing himself. Eubank Jr., that's the reason they made such a great, entertaining fight of the year type fight, because both these guys are at the same level, at the same peak of their conditioning, their power, their strength, only they were in different categories and size. That's the reason Eubank Jr. was able to pull that fight off. And I think the second time around, he does it easier. But Eubank Jr. has a missing gear as well, man. So both these guys have improved themselves as a top 3 in neither weight division. These guys are right outside champions. And that's the reason Conor Benn needs to do something quick in order to change that perception. And if he can pick up a strap against, I think, the weakest link in the welterweight division in Mario Barrios, then all is forgiven. But if he can't do that and he can't strike gold with that, then he's gonna be in the same boat as Chris Eubank Jr. He can beat the interim champions. He can beat the IBO champions. He can beat the guys that are right outside the top 3 and top 4 of the big names. But he'll never be that name if he doesn't pick up a real strap.
I think one of the questions I have about Conor Benn is how quickly he goes back to 147. Like, 2 fights in a row at 160. He hasn't fought at 147 in years. So, like, can he cut all the way back down and fight in a high-level world championship kind of fight his next time out? Probably not. He's probably going to need one fight before he takes on one of those guys that we were just talking about. Either way, though, Sergio, like, win or lose this fight, as long as he's competitive in it, like, everyone's going to want to fight Conor Benn, because Conor Benn all of a sudden is becoming the money man once again.
Yeah, like, but back-to-back losses is a terrible look.
Back-to-back losses at a weight class 2 above his natural weight. Like, that's, and especially if he gets flattened, then yes, that's a problem. But if this second fight looks like the first one, I don't think it's going to be a big problem for Conor Benn. I think he's still going to be incredibly marketable.
Well, time will tell. It's never a good look to go back-to-back losses. Even though it is a competitive, entertaining fight, it diminishes you. It takes away from your career. It puts miles in your odometer, and the fans, both Conor Benn has a lot of fans, especially in the UK. And if he comes across the pond over here, he's gonna make fans. He speaks Spanish. He's good looking. He's a hell of a fighter. Comes for the knockout, but you still have those back-to-back losses that you're fighting, and you have to prove yourself. So your stock diminishes, man. That's just the way this game is. One loss, okay. You dare to be great, but back-to-back losses, something's wrong with the fighter. And if you haven't even picked up a championship,
it's the kind of fights though. Like you take back-to-back loss to Chris Eubank Jr., that means a lot more than back-to-back loss at 147 against some jabroni. Like you got to look at the full picture of it, don't you? Like it's not just back-to-back losses. It's going up, daring to be great, and fighting a guy that's going to be significantly bigger than you on Fight Night. I'd like to see Conor go to 150. Next time out, fight a welterweight. Maybe it's a tall one. I don't know. Somebody that is not on his level. Get used to that weight. Then go back down. Fight at 147. I also want to see him stay in the UK for a while. Like he had that run of fights in the US. Nobody's really going. Did in Orlando. Did in Vegas. He hasn't established himself at all as a US draw. Like this, now that he's back in the mix in the UK, this is his chance to build his brand. Like get it up to a really high level and then come over to the US. Fight, and you can get guys to come over from, like Devin Haney, he'd happily go over to the UK. Mario Barrios, send him a ticket. Send him that paycheck, send him a ticket. He'll go over there. I think the opportunity for Conor Benn to explode into a star in the UK, I think is pretty big. So I'd like to see him continue to do that. All right, Sergio.
I think you're wrong, Chris Mannix, because what? One last thing. I think you're wrong again. I mean, you're wrong very often. But look, who's over after? You know whose career was over after back-to-back losses?
You.
You're looking at him.
I didn't even know you had back. Didn't you? Wait, you.
No, I came back and had one win that called it a career. But yeah, those back-to-back losses was a big hit in my career in my mid-30s or late 30s. And that's when I realized I didn't have it anymore. And I had one more payday with Angulo, and then I got this gig with you.
Yes, and we're all better off for it. All right, we will convene in Philly next week. This week I should say, a reminder that you can attend the live taping of The Fighter and the Writer on Friday, 2300 Arena in Philadelphia. We will go on immediately after the weigh-in, so come for the weigh-in. Stick around for the live episode of The Fighter and the Writer, which was all Sergio Mora's idea. We would not be here if not for you, Sergio Mora.
Absolutely. Now you, Chris Mannix, go convene into your bathroom in Connecticut and give me a full report on that bidet.
So gross.